Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode number 1 of the BizJitsu podcast. My name is Vince Pokleb. I'm your host. I'm here with Archie Bayakal, co-host.
What it do? What it do?
And also Ed Kwok, our co-host / producer with BizJitsu.
How's it going, everyone?
Well, I'm excited to finally get this thing off the ground. We're live. Today's our first day. We put a lot of preliminary work to try to get this thing going. But before we start into kind of the meat and potatoes, I'd love to just give everybody a brief preview. The goal of this podcast is really to be able to create conversations around all things business, as well as all things jiu-jitsu, with an end goal of being able to create a business referral network within the jiu-jitsu community. I think the best part about doing jiu-jitsu is there's a certain unspoken trust with people that we train with and people that also do jiu-jitsu. And I think there's a great carryover into business. It's just no one has formally put an opportunity like that together. And really, that's the goal of the BizJitsu podcast, is to create a community where we can support one another and support each other's businesses. Yeah. So I guess as we're here, there's 3 of us. We're getting started. I think it's appropriate for us to introduce ourselves and tell the world a little bit about our backgrounds and our stories. Archie, I'll start with you and a little bit about you and your background.
Yeah. What's up? Yeah, this is Archie. So in jiu-jitsu, I'm a brown belt under Thomas Kenny, training over at Thomas Kenny Training Facility out here in Corona. I'm currently residing in Westminster, California. And also I practice chiropractic out in Redlands. So yeah, in a nutshell, that's me. I'm entering into the entrepreneur space and ready to get rolling.
Absolutely. I'm excited about that. I think that you're going to bring some, some very specific color, just because, your perspective on this is going to be someone that is entering into starting your own business. And I think that's great. I think everyone should go through that. And especially when there's something that they're extremely passionate about, to be able to take the steps forward and capitalize on. I think that's fantastic. Welcome. Excited to have you.
Thanks. What about you, Ed?
Well, appreciate you guys having me on the show. Yeah, no, it's for me, the name's Ed. I am a white belt, 2 stripes, I guess, out of PCI Jiu Jitsu in Mission Viejo, California. And career-wise, I run a small little marketing firm or company as a consultant, primarily working in brand identity, brand statement development, and some marketing planning. And yeah, actually, I'm also transitioning kind of into the cybersecurity space as well. So that's it for me. Archie, I got to tell you, man, I did not know that you drive around that much. I mean, from Westminster to Yorba Linda to Redlands. Like, geez, man, that's a lot of miles.
Drive. But the good thing about it is it's opposite of traffic.
That's true.
Of everything.
Yeah.
So it's good.
Yeah. So my role on the show for everybody is that, I'm a kind of this co-host producer, kind of a hybrid position, I guess you can say. So I'm here to help out a lot with the technical side of things and help the show come along smoothly, and be here to answer any questions along the way. And I'm excited for some of the guests that we're going to be having on, the interviews that we'll be hosting, and just to get to know the both of you guys more as we grow this thing. So that's it for me, Vince.
For sure. So a couple quick things. I love how I'll use the word humble Ed is. So just to give some context, I'm gonna put him on the spot a little bit. Ed also happens to be a former professor at the university level, teaching marketing, which is a fundamental cornerstone in business. He's also working on his PhD and finalizing his PhD in organizational leadership, which is also another major cornerstone in business, right? So when we look at business as a whole, those are probably 2 major pieces of it, between marketing and leadership. And I appreciate how you just kind of very, very subtly just talked briefly about marketing. You also have your own marketing company, Mallard Creative. Before we, I'll share my bio here in a second, but I'd love to hear a little bit more about just your background in marketing, how all that started. How did you start teaching all those things?
Oh man. Yeah, no, so I'll give you kind of the long story, right? Because I think for the sake of content,
Bring it. Let's go.
I honestly, I never planned on going to college. I wanted to go into law enforcement. That never happened. And say that I have Asian tiger parents if you want. So they just wanted me to make sure that I got my college degree before I did anything else. And I met one of my professors during my undergrad. By simply remembering my name by the end of the class, changed my entire academic trajectory. And so I was just kind of this management major, nothing crazy, just trying to get through college again to satisfy my parents. But she changed the entire course of my career, everything in my life, just simply by remembering my name by the end of the class, because it showed me that for once somebody cared about me, right? In terms of my academics. So that led me down a career into marketing. I worked for an oral hygiene company. I've worked in tankless water heaters. I've worked in high performance motorsports. I've worked in flooring. I've worked in wine, big box retail, video games. I mean, you name it, I've pretty much done it. And that has led me down this path of primarily being in marketing. And I've also been in commercial lending. That's where my previous position was before I launched Mallard Creative. I've always been consulting a lot of people, especially for small businesses, because I think the whole thing for me around Mallard Creative is that I genuinely feel that especially small businesses, startups, mom and pop shops, they deserve a lot more attention and they deserve a lot more help, because it takes a lot of courage to start up a business. You know, I've learned a lot for as much as I've been in business to start up my own as Mallard Creative. It's been a huge learning lesson every step along the way. And I just want to give people an opportunity at success, a chance at success. I think success is going to be strongly driven by one's own work ethic, but I think there's a little bit of luck involved, you know? And so with that is, how do we increase those chances, right? How do we play our hands right? How do we play our cards correctly? And for a lot of people who don't come from a marketing background, it's not just about advertising. There's a lot more to it. I mean, my process with developing a brand statement is, I think that's kind of my bread and butter of helping companies and businesses establish an identity of understanding who they and what the business actually is, right? And at its essence. And so there's that. And see, this is kind of why I was hoping not to go down this, because I'll talk forever about just because I'm truly passionate about this, and I'm not trying to say all this just to show off or anything. There's nothing to show off about. It's purely, this is who I am of why I do this. And it's the same thing with BizJitsu. Being a part of this is in the sense of building this community, because we care about people, and we hope that people care about us. And so we're bringing everybody together. And so, yeah, I'm actually going back to teaching. So I'm an active adjunct professor, teaching marketing and sales, doing that. And then, yeah, working on my PhD in organizational leadership. As to what exactly am I going to do with it? I don't know. Probably write a book or become a motivational speaker. One or the other. I really don't know what you would do with it. But, you know, PhD, from my understanding, it's not a doctorate of philosophy or anything. That's where PhD stands for permanent head damage after everything that I've gone through here. So, but yeah, so that's a little bit more about me. Like I said, I was hoping not to go down that, but
no, totally fine. I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but I appreciate that. I you know, I can appreciate that. You know, for those of you that are just listening to us and just getting started, Ed and I, we cross paths at a Chris Howder seminar over at his academy, PCI Jiu Jitsu. And this is when BizJitsu was really just more of a thought in my head. I was trying to put some of the pieces of the puzzle together. I saw Ed, he was shooting some video at the seminar, and we ended up chatting, and I saw, you know, his whole setup. I'm like, man, this guy's a professional. Let me reach out to him, grab his business card. We had a chance to be able to chat. And I didn't really know where this whole thing would go. We just set a call. We had a conversation. I shared with him the kind of vision or the thought of what we're trying to accomplish. And we set a bunch of follow-up calls. And I was a product of the consulting work that Mallard Creative's done. A lot of what you're going to see and just the direction that the brand itself goes is really driven by that kind of cornerstone of identifying the brand and what we're trying to accomplish, and all the things that come along with that. So yeah, it's great. And I mean, I'll tell you, you had mentioned something a little bit earlier about giving every business a fair chance, right? And being able to be able to do that. I mean, I'll tell you, one of the things that inspires me is being able to, help people with their ideas and be able to make that come to life, right? And I think everybody, I shouldn't say everybody, but I think it is pretty common for people to have a desire to say, man, one day I'm going to open a business, or one day I'm going to have a business. And I think that's a very valid thing to be able to go after, but a lot of times people don't know what to do, and being able to have someone that can help guide that is super helpful. The other part of it too is, part of the roots of BizJitsu is I grew up in a household where I have immigrant parents, right? My dad and mom both came from the Philippines. My dad came here to America and realized that if he stayed, he can create a life and create a business and be able to provide, for his family or his future family at the time by starting a business. And so I understand what it's like going through kind of what you're talking about, Ed, of just, hey, we're going to kind of muscle our way through this thing. And again, it's, the value of being able to take some idea out of your head and monetize that, I think is great. And that's one of the things that continues to inspire me, right? My day job, I'm an executive for a franchise company. I support individuals that are looking to get started in business and plugging them into a franchise model. At the same time, I have a boutique recruiting and staffing firm called Union Staffing Group. My wife, she does hair. She has a business as well. And I think, again, just being able to have that is a critical piece. And there's other people in the jiu-jitsu world that do that, right? Archie is one of them, right? He's looking to get his business off the ground. We were chatting through that yesterday around kind of the future of what that looks like and the timeline that he's up against. But not to get too far on my soapbox, Archie, tell us about kind of your situation right now and what you're working towards as far as getting the practice open.
So right now, I'm working with another chiropractor. I just graduated in December. So one of the things that really scared me about opening a business is that I'm not going to be ready. It just doesn't feel right. I just got out of school. Like, who's gonna come to this guy that just graduated? So, I wanted to. My plan was to get some experience under my belt, really understand how the system works, and be a better practitioner, so to say. So, I plan on opening next year in the fall. So and then this fell on my lap. This is more of that stepping stone and trying to understand all the other sides of the business. The one thing that that I've was listening to on my way here before we did the podcast was and I wanted to ask you guys this was they're on the topic of being afraid. Right. So one of the things is that we always fall short before we actually hurdle over that big, that next level of being an individual or being an entrepreneur. So what I wanted to ask you too, or you guys, is that like, what were the things that you were afraid of before you actually did start a business? And then what did you do to get over it? Was there any jiu-jitsu related mindset things that connected with that? Or Ed, you first.
Oh man. Yeah, definitely a lot. Again, it's interesting when you think about being an employee versus being an entrepreneur or being a business. I was once taught you don't call yourself an entrepreneur unless you have multiple businesses. And it becomes a serial thing. So for me, it's like, yeah, I have my own business. I'm a marketer. I'm a professional marketer, right? That's my expertise. In the sense of having my own business, what I was probably most scared of, fear-wise, on the business side was being able to charge what I wanted to charge. And then actually, in essence, Vince can tell you. I was afraid to charge him actually. And so I ended up just like, I'm going to do it for free. And everyone's like, should never do that. Deal. But it was a fantastic deal anyway. it's this fear, and then the fear of wanting to charge what you think you should charge or that you would want to charge. And then that stems from a level of fear of confidence in the product and the output, right? And what I mean by that is Vince mentioned that I had this crazy fancy camera. I'm a marketer. I can make anything look really good. Okay. I can make, I'm carrying around this giant fancy shoulder rigged camera and I look like I'm some kind of professional videographer. In essence, I'm just trying to do this for fun. It just so happens that my camera does look fancy. I got the whole matte box and shoulder rig and the cage and everything around it and the sound equipment. And I feel like I'm just downplaying myself maybe a little bit too much, but the confidence into what you are actually providing, right? So I look at business, and in a sense, business owners and yes, entrepreneurs, really in the sense that I feel that fundamentally people want to make this world a better place, right? And we enter into these businesses because we want to contribute that and leave our mark in society and during our lifetime, right? And so for me, it's because I genuinely care about small businesses. The medium-sized businesses, the large-sized businesses, big box corporations, I mean, you name, they've got it figured out in the sense that they've been in business, they've grown to where they are, they have their own problems. But the jiu-jitsu school down the street, the taekwondo school down the street, the chiropractor in the next town over, right? They're the ones that need help. The small brand new restaurant that just opened up, little burger shop that just opened up, the new coffee shop that opened up. They're the ones that need help. They're the ones that don't have access to the same amount of resources per se, because they're constrained by funding, they're constrained by time, they're constrained by, the biggest hurdle that marketers face, especially consultants like me, is that when people think that you hire a marketing consultant, that you're getting somebody to do your work for you. It's like, no, the consultant is there to guide you and you're the one that's supposed to execute on it, unless the contractual agreement is that I would do the work for you. Okay. So I digress, and I'll kind of circle back a little bit. Being an employee makes things a lot easier because you have no liability, right? You're just working for a paycheck. You get the job done, you get paid for your services, you're adding value into a corporation, into an entity. And that entity is hopefully providing value to the world. Versus the other way around, like I said, is that if you're a small business, we enter into this to leave our mark, right? So Vince, if I were to look at you and then taking the staffing, right? You are genuinely helping people's lives by giving them jobs.
100%.
Right? And then Arch, to you with the chiropractic, you are genuinely helping people live better lives, healthier lives. Right? And so we are contributing something into this world to hopefully that by the time that we leave this earth, we've made it a little bit of a better place. I'm not saying we have to save the world from global warming and save all the orcas and dolphins, but it's like we can help. We're leaving our mark. We're trying to help people out. That's what we do. In essence, if I were to relate this back to jiu-jitsu, for me, it's twofold. Why do we do jiu-jitsu? Right? Why do we do it? Everybody has a reason as to why they do it. And it was interesting because I was just on Instagram the other day, and I think what's his name? There's a Korean jiu-jitsu guy. I think he's out in Atlanta. Something Kim, I forget, but
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, right. And so I think he has this podcast called like Created on the Mats or Born on the Mats or something.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And they have this little highlight video of people telling why they're in jiu-jitsu and how jiu-jitsu saved their lives. Right. I think one was like a mother had her son was murdered by robbers. Another person was like drug addiction and all this and that. And so in essence, we go through the martial arts, and I believe this about martial arts in general, that the martial arts creates better human beings. We all have our demons. We all have our challenges. We all have our whatever it is, and we bring that and we face them on the mat. It's never about like, if we rolled together and we sparred together, it's not just about sparring with each other. There's something deeper about it, right? In the sense that we are building camaraderie. We are going into battle together against each other. We're playing it in the sense that we're rolling. But if you really think about that, through that process, are we not becoming better individuals? We learn to respect the other person opposite of us. We learn to embrace ourselves. So one thing that my Coach Brian, always tells me is like, I'm afraid to embrace my aggressiveness. I'm not an aggressive person. And so he's like, you have to be aggressive. Don't be afraid to be aggressive. Right? So why? Because my fear of hurting another individual. I don't mean to hijack the podcast. I feel like I'm going down this rabbit hole, but Arch, to answer your question, it's like, I have this fear. I had this fear, especially starting up Mallard Creative, of wanting to charge what I wanted to charge. Constant self-doubt of starting, right? And the self-doubt also comes in the sense of lack of confidence in what I'm able to produce for people. It's like I can easily talk about it. If I don't have to charge someone, I can talk about it all day long. As soon as I throw money in there and I'm like, yeah, it's going to cost this much, I get real timid. And it's something that I've been learning. And it's something that I've been working through. And so, but it's the same thing. Being on the mat with somebody, it's like I'm usually, whenever I go to a school or anytime I've practiced, I've always been the bigger guy. And so I fall into that kind of stereotypical, nobody wants to roll with the big fat guy. Okay. Because why? Don't use your weight. It's not fair. Whatever excuse they have, And so I've always been afraid to hurt people. Even when I did striking martial arts, whether it's taekwondo, kickboxing, whatever, like I would kill the bag, but I'd be terrified to kick somebody hard. I've accidentally done it. The times that I'm like, all right, I'm going to go for it. Yeah, I have actually hurt people. I broke one of my students' ribs on accident once. Like I felt bad when I was a taekwondo instructor, and the guy was like a Kyokushin karate guy too. So he took it like a champ, total champ, but I felt horrible. So, yeah, I would say for me it was like that hurdle when especially starting business of fear, self-doubt, and the confidence in what I'm putting out. Sorry for making such a long explanation about it, but here I am, producer / co-host, taking over the show. So anyway,
you're totally good. I mean, I'll tell you, just to kind of build on that, if I were to ask myself that exact same question, what would I be afraid of, or what am I scared of? I think there's kind of two worlds. One is fear of failure, right? I think being able to put yourself out there and, okay, I'm going to put myself out there. I believe I could do this. I can put myself out there. What if it doesn't work? What are people going to think? What are people going to say? All of those things. I think that's a big piece, that fear of failure. But really that ties into my own ego, right? Of me sometimes tricking myself of being, of thinking I'm better than I am. But also too, I think the other side of it too is I think I could even get in my own way, right? Of being able to say, man, I am actually pretty good, but this fear of rejection or fear of what people are thinking of me has hindered, my ability to move a little bit more, aggressively or assertively as I, whether it was up in my career or whether it was starting a business. That fear is, that fear is real. But I will tell you, when we talk about jiu-jitsu, I think the thing about it is with jiu-jitsu is you got to get on the mat. Yep. And you got to go to class. And you could read about it all you want. You could watch every YouTube channel, every BJJ Fanatics video. You could do everything as it comes to that, but you're only going to get better by starting and sticking with it over the long haul. And that's the exact same thing that I found in a lot of areas, right? It's just being able, man, you got to start. And oftentimes you don't know where to start. I think the thing is just start, right? I mean, this podcast is a perfect example of that. It was an idea that I had in my brain and said, okay, hey, I'm not 100% sure what it's going to be or where it's going to go, but you just got to start and start planting some seeds, start taking steps forward, and see what happens.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the things I was excited about, just to transition here, is just, how I always tied everything in with jujitsu, with everything I did. And personally, I thought, man, am I crazy? Am I upset? Am I obsessed over jujitsu? Am I that obsessed? Because I had some friends that would make fun of me of like, oh, you do jujitsu, you just roll around with a bunch of dudes on the ground, sweating all over each other, but
Absolutely.
but there's that other side of it, of like that mindset and just making that connection on what you do on and off the mat. So yeah, that's like one of the things I'm excited about. I just want to hear, what everyone's, how do you guys make the connection? How each individual and, the people that we're going to be talking to, how do they make that connection with jiu-jitsu and business?
Just to kind of, again, just build on that statement or that thought, you learn as you go. Right.
Yeah.
And I think being able to find a good coach and being able to find a community of people that, support you, but yet challenge you. I think being able to go out on a limb and try new things. I think being able to doing, a little bit of self-assessment of like, hey, what did I do good? What didn't I do so good? And then being able to use resources, right? I think just as a person or as an adult, right? I think it's good to be resourceful, right? And there's tons of resources about getting better at all of these things, right? There's tons of resources about how to get better at marketing, and there's tons of resources on how to get better at passing someone's guard, right? So, there's tons of parallels between the two. That was part of the inspiration around this podcast is, man, the world of jiu-jitsu and just someone evolving themselves through that process with an overall end goal, whether it's the path to becoming a black belt, right? I think there's some aspirations there. I know that I have that aspiration to one day, go through that process and see, you hear the phrase of like, oh, that's where it all starts. Like, okay, well, I'm just going to stick with it until, something like that happens, and we'll worry about, what that starting process is after that. But that's the exact same thing when it comes to, doing, getting started with the business. Is, man, you just got to go through our process and stick with it.
Yeah.
Well, cool. So, this is some good conversation. I will tell you a couple things that I'm excited about personally. Part of the goal here is for us to be able to bring on guests and interview people that also do jiu-jitsu just like ourselves, and hear their stories about how they've been able to accomplish, and just hear about their journey doing jiu-jitsu and what they've been able to accomplish in their business. Really what I'm excited about is just hearing people's stories, right? I think there's a ton of value in people's origin story on how they started and where they are. But other part of the story that I'm interested in hearing is just people overcoming adversity, right? I think that there's a ton of value in just hearing the redemption story, right? And being able to hear how someone goes from, the top of the mountain to the bottom of the lowest peak to, being able to crawl themselves out of there. And there's a ton of value in that, right? The goal here is just to be able to share content with, fellow jiu-jitsu practitioners and share this content and, hopefully inspire others to continue on their pursuit of jiu-jitsu and their pursuit of, growing and building a business.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I have a question for you guys.
Fire away.
As we are trying to figure out, actually, scratch that. As we are growing into these businesses, right? So kind of, I'm trying to build off of what we just talked about. So we're talking about what concerns that we've had, right? What were the things that we were struggling with, and then we were both kind of in a sense related it back to grappling or to jiu-jitsu. And in light of what this show is going to be about, as you bring guests on, is to expand upon that. Let's talk about that real quick. Is what have been some of your highlights or your highs that you've experienced, and what are some of the lows? And I don't, I don't need to put you guys on the spot to be all like, hey, let's get vulnerable here, but I think there's a level of vulnerability that's going to be naturally a part of these conversations, because like, again, so for me, it was that my jiu-jitsu journey has been one of more or less self-discovery, right? For me, is to understand what it means to be in touch with my aggression, right? And I think, I listened to, who was it? It was either Joe Rogan or Jordan Peterson. I think it was Jordan Peterson who said this, was that people who do martial arts it's quite interesting, especially is specifically talking to men, and is that, I mean, but I think this applies to anybody. We have knowledge of how to hurt people, right? If you think about it, even if somebody who just knows a basic armbar, you have the ability and the knowledge to hurt somebody. And yet, it's not like we're out on the street saying, hey, come over here to some random person and try to do a flying armbar on them, right? So he said that with that comes a lot of power and a lot of responsibility. And that power to me was like, wow, that's something that I still struggle with, because I've never seen my martial arts as something, as a way of like, I've never looked at it as a way that I can go hurt people, because that was never my intention. It's just not who I am. And I struggle with that in the sense of business for me, because I want to charge what I want to charge, but I'm scared to charge that much. Why? Because I'm afraid of rejection, because I'm afraid of failure, because I'm afraid to be laughed at. I'm afraid of hearing no. Now I've gone through, here's the funny part. I've gone through tons of sales training. Brian Tracy's 21st century sales training, blah, blah, blah. I don't know if you guys know who Brian Tracy is. He's like, of course, eat that frog, right? And it's funny because every time you go through any sales training, they're always like, every no is one step closer to a yes, right? Or you get the stereotypical kind of like, it's just like pouring coffee. When you go to the Denny's or wherever and they ask you coffee, you say no. It's like you just rejected the lady or the server, right? No big deal. Just move on to the next one. But it's different when you're starting up your own business, right? It's, in fact, I take this back to, I just competed in my first competition in a very long time, and I lost both matches. But it's interesting because now that when you look at that from the perspective of being a small business owner and starting up your own small business, is that every no hurts that much more, because it's not like you have a ton of people crawling through your doors, right? So, I mean, Archie, to your point, into your context, imagine, you set up shop, you got, let's just say you got 2 tables going, right? You got 2 chiropractic tables going. You can bring patients in. They come in, they want to, well, how much is an adjustment? And you say, it's $150. Let's just say 100. Let's just say 100.
I like 150.
Yeah, I know, right? We love 150, but let's just say 100. We'll get a little competitive here. Let's say 150. And you just opened the doors, and this person says no. I can go down the street and they're going to charge me $30. In fact, we just had this conversation, right? Mm-hmm. And you're like, but you need that $100 because you're a small business, right? So this fear, this, how do we grow? And I'm really hoping that through this is what we can extrapolate from a lot of other, from the guests that come on to the BizJitsu podcast. And I'm kind of using all of this as a discussion to point out, like, this is what we're hoping to bring, at least from my point of view as a producer, the content that we produce. This is what I'm hoping that we bring to the community, right? To the community of BJJ practitioners, business owners, entrepreneurs, and even, if you're an employee. Because, to your point, yes, I'm studying organizational leadership because leadership is a huge component. I would love to hear from people who are in leadership roles. What does it mean to be a leader? These are the types of things that I'm hoping content wise that we can bring and provide to people that are listening. And as a funny joke, we're about half an hour into this recording. If you're still listening, thank you. But that's what I'm hoping to bring out of this show. That's what I'm really excited for, is that as it's not just going to be about, oh, I'm a purple belt, I'm a brown belt, I'm a black belt, and I have so and so business. It's not just going to be that, and I really hope it's not going to be that, and I'm sure we're going to be working hard towards that, because there's so much that people go through when they are starting a business, or even when they are on the top of the mountain of the business. The top of the mountain can be a very lonely place. What's that like? What's it like to have employees? 1 employee, 2 employee, 500 employees, and that's what I'm really excited for. And Vince, you touched on this a little bit, but I'd love to hear from, I'm going to throw it back to you guys after my long kind of expanded lecture of what are you guys most excited for to be, when it comes to this community, when it comes to bringing content to people?
So a couple things. What I'm the most excited about is, so when we tie the whole idea of business and jiu-jitsu, there are people right now that practice jiu-jitsu that are, commission-based salespeople, people that are solopreneurs, people that independent contractors, where, like you said, hey, they don't have a flood of people coming through their doors. My perspective is, if I'm going to support a business and it happens to be owned by a jiu-jitsu practitioner, I'm more motivated to be able to support that business, right? So if I'm looking for a mechanic and I have 2 mechanics to choose from, and one practices jiu-jitsu and one doesn't, the guy who practices jiu-jitsu is going to get my business, right? Same thing, right? If I'm looking for a realtor, if I'm looking for a financial planner, any resource that I'm looking for, right? Whether they're an employee and they get paid a commission for my business, and they got to struggle every day to be able to get past those no's to get to that yes, I'd prefer to give it to that person versus someone that's not a practitioner. And the idea that this community and the things that we have planned, we'll have the ability to be able to do that, to support one another and help grow each other's businesses while we're learning from other great business owners. I mean, that gets me fired up, right? It's interesting, and I hear you talk, right, and you're the marketer, right, out of the 3 of us. I'm a salesperson by trade, right? That was just something that when I was 19 years old, I learned that I could sell stuff, and it was awesome, right? I mean, there's just a certain value in being able to go through that process. And when I was 19, I was selling home security systems as a telemarketer, right? This would have been in 1996, so back in the day. But there's a ton of value, right, in just that overall skill set and that mindset. But just like anything else, right? Some people it's gonna come a little bit more natural. Some people, it's going to take a little bit more time, but it is a necessity of business, right? Is being able to, it's one thing to have a great product. It's another thing to market that product and create interest. But ultimately, at the end of the day, a business is measured by a financial metric. And that financial metric is how much profit is a business generating, right? And the only way you can generate profits is there's going to be expenses in the business, and there has to be a front end funnel of being able to take this lead generation that is done via the marketing system and put it through a sales process to convert that into revenue, right? So the idea that we can participate in that, and the idea that we could help small businesses just by being able to create awareness around the entrepreneurs or the small business owners in the jiu-jitsu community, and be able to create traffic into their businesses or into their client portfolios. I mean, that's what gets me excited, right? I love the idea that, hey, we can not only train together and do jiu-jitsu together, but the fact that we can network both on and off the mats is what gets me excited. The analogy that I use in the past is, I think this is something that we can build over time. And in the same way today, it's not uncommon for someone to think about doing a deal on the golf course. I believe that there's an opportunity for us to get this thing to a point where we can, where it becomes more commonplace to not just come to a mat and train jiu-jitsu, but I think coming onto a mat and creating deals together is what really gets me excited, right? I think the podcast is just a vehicle, how we create some of these conversations. Obviously, there's going to be a ton of learning lessons that we'll get along the way. Gives us a chance, to be able to express some of our own creativity and learn along the way. But what really gets me fired up is the idea that, man, that small business that is looking to get their first client, or that business that's looking to grow, into something even greater, or a company that's trying to acquire another company. The fact that we can, create those conversations through people that do jiu-jitsu, that's what gets me fired up.
Arch, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, man, just hearing that when Vince pitched this to me before we started all this, man, I was so overwhelmed when I heard this. Like, I was quiet for like probably a good 15 seconds when he explained this to me over the phone. But yeah, that's what I'm really excited about. But more importantly is just me being, new to this space. Is, I feel like the universe is telling me to be a part of this. So that's one thing. Like, I'm just gonna step in and like learn more about what all this process is, learn from everyone that we're gonna, interview, learn how their steps, their journey through, and how they tie that to jiu-jitsu. Because that was one of the reasons why Vince reached out to me, because being new to this again, one thing that I learned is that in business, people not buy what you do, they buy because who you are. I can't remember if that was the same way that was explained, but I was trying to find a way, how can I explain myself, who I am, without actually having to do it? Because I really have difficulty in explaining myself. I feel nervous. It's not comfortable for me, but the more I do it, it gets better. But the one way I would do it is just interview other people and what I do, and that was specifically jiu-jitsu. So I don't know if you guys saw my post, but I record and interview people and ask two basic questions: how long have they been training for, and what keeps them going back to the mat? So the more stories I hear on everyone's why, that's so motivating for me, not only to like continue being on the mats, but now I want to transition that to more of that business space now, like, because I'm stepping into that space. And let's hear about how they are continuing staying on the grind, but also how are they relating that to jiu-jitsu. So that's what I'm excited about. And yeah, man, creating this community.
Dude, I'm excited for you, man. I think I remember when I started to see you create some content, and I knew that you had that ambition of starting your practice, and I started to see you create the content, and really that's the steps, man. Is you just got to start, and a lot of times, again, I mean, I'll tell you, when we originally, or when this thought originally came to mind, I started to think of like, okay, hey, does it turn into a chamber of commerce that's for jiu-jitsu? Or does it turn to like a BNI group that's for jiu-jitsu? And I had all these different ideas. We eventually landed on, okay, hey, the first step in the process would be this podcast, and just creating conversations and just talking about it, right? And just getting that out into the universe as a starting point. I believe that there is going to be opportunity for us with the BizJitsu community to create, private Facebook and LinkedIn groups where people could interact and network with one another, right? We're in the process of building our website, and I believe that on the website there'll be some listings of where people could, if you're looking for a contractor, if you're looking for a mortgage broker, if you're looking for a realtor in a certain market, right? That people that own businesses and operate small businesses and also happen to do jiu-jitsu, that they can participate and get listings onto the website, right? So I think there's going to be a lot of different vehicles that we can support one another. I think the moment or the milestone that I'm the most excited about is being able to have some live networking environments in jiu-jitsu. It's doing an open mat, right? I think being able to say, hey, it's an open mat, that's just a bunch of people that own businesses. I think that's that gets me excited, and I think that's going to be a key milestone for us. But in all of those things and all those great visions and all those great ideas and thoughts, you just got to start. You just got to start, right, and take the steps forward. Again, that's what when I saw you to start doing some of those interviews over at the academy, and I started to see the content. I mean, even just the content, how it's evolved since you first started, it's been awesome. But just you being courageous enough to take those first steps. I mean, I think it's great. And those are the fundamental things, right? It's kind of like, hey, I want to do jiu-jitsu, and you could read all the reviews that you want. You could watch all the videos that you want, but until you show up to class and put on that, put on the white belt, put on the gi, and show up, right, and start to figure out how to do a shrimp drill and a shoulder roll, right? You could talk about it all you want, but until you actually get down there on the mat is where the rubber meets the road, and that's the same thing, right? So I'm excited just to see your own growth and progression, and it'll be super cool, right, to be able to look back on this content and be able to say, man, this is where Archie was when we started, and this is where Archie's business is, going forward. So yeah,
it might be a really interesting kind of series, and let's just brainstorm on the show here real quick, because as Archie, your timeline's about a year out, you said, just roughly speaking. It's like, yeah, what if we followed him and you shared about what's going on? Because I think what's going to be cool is this. I think the three of us here make up exactly, in a sense, our audience, and who our audience is going to be. People who've been in business, who are in executive positions, people who are just starting out, people who are in transition. And, and there's always something to be shared, and there's always something to be learned. And I think for you, Archie, like, especially with you starting up a chiropractic practice, your own practice, it's like, yeah, bring the questions as we bring these guests on, and learn from it, right? And I think you're part of a networking group, or kind of a mastermind group, if I'm not mistaken, for entrepreneurs, right?
And yes, Black Diamond Club. Shout out to them, Black Diamond Club.
Let's
Sean
go.
and Lacey.
We're not sponsored, but we'd love to have your sponsorship guide. Just kidding. Hey,
No,
always
seriously.
be closing ABC. But for me, it's like, I like to get down into, again, kind of the essence and the fundamental, like, what causes somebody to do something, to make a certain decision, right? What caused somebody to make a decision to start up their business? What drove them to continue to, and like you're saying, what brings them back? What is it? I'm very curious about that. And that's why when I saw your video on Instagram, I was like, Vince,
talk to Archie.
Yeah, talk to him. Like, you got something going on here. But and again, Vince, obviously being the founder and the primary host of this show, is that you are in an executive position. You have experienced business, right? You have a lot of experience. You have probably more than both of us combined. And I'm not saying that in terms of age. I'm saying that in terms of quality of experience, professional.
Age is also a factor, for sure. I've just been around longer.
But with that, it's like, we all have something to give. We all have something to learn. And I think that's the fun part about this whole community, this whole show, is that that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to share with each other. We're also trying to learn from each other, and we're trying to enrich each other, because, like I said, it goes back to why we all have businesses, why people start small business. We are trying to leave a mark in this world that's going to make this place a little bit better, give people a better opportunity to share that success, right? Part of the brand statement when it comes to BizJitsu, that, when Vince and I kind of started this in the beginning, was like, success is not you can't do it alone. You cannot do it alone, right? We have to be in this all together. And like, yeah, I mean, even Archie and the three of us met up yesterday, and I was telling Archie by the car, like, hey, I'd love to just talk to you, like, help you out, especially when whether it's the practice that he's apprenticing at right now, but again, or when he starts up his own thing, right? If I can be of value to him, to help him to be a part of that process, to, as far as the marketing goes, start off on the right foot, hey, I've done what I came to do, and hopefully, I bring that value to him, and that he's going to continue to bring that value to other people. Right? It's just the way that's just kind of how all of this works, and I'm really excited that as a guest, as the people that we bring on to the show, that's what's going to happen. That we'll be able to learn from them. We'll be able to share with them in their victories, in their losses, whatever it is, and that's what's going to grow. And yeah, eventually into the physical realm. I mean, right now it's all digital. You guys are listening to this podcast from wherever podcasts are shared, right? But get out onto the mat and have these open mats. I think your price should be like, you have to submit a business card. You have to exchange a business card before you start rolling. Then you can, slap and pound it and start rolling, right? That's the networking. You have to exchange business cards before you can roll.
For sure. That's the end goal, man. Is
Yeah.
we gotta find a way to be able to create deals for one another, right? I think anytime we can create traffic and create opportunities for one another, there's a lot of value there, right? Whether it's something as simple as hey, we're gonna go and visit a restaurant, or we're going to go and get a haircut, right? Obviously I don't have any business getting a haircut, but getting a haircut by one of our fellow jiu-jitsu practitioners, right? I think anything that we could do to support each other's businesses is going to be a key critical part. And yeah, I agree with you, Ed. I think this is going to be a unique opportunity. Maybe that's one of the questions we ask, right? Is, hey, what advice would you give Archie as he launches his business? Maybe that's going to be maybe this would be the part of it. But yeah, I agree. I think any opportunity for us to be able to document that and be able to watch Archie's growth, right? The end goal is to be able to support one another, and you being part of the show and a co-host. Obviously, that same rule applies to you, right? Being able to help get your business off the ground. And also too, I think just being able to share your story is going to be an inspiration to others, right? Because there's tons of people that would love to start a business. They just haven't figured out how or why or what. And again, this is going to be a platform for us to be able to do that.
Yeah, for me, like one of the big things is, and again, I was telling Archie this, especially in the chiropractic world, and I would even say this in the martial arts world, because my specialty in terms of marketing actually does kind of fall. It's very niched into martial arts schools, small growing martial arts schools. Is the build it and they will come mentality, right? It's one thing to be an amazing chiropractor. It's another thing to be an amazing jiu-jitsu teacher, professor. But just because you have the school doesn't mean that it's going to succeed, right? And this is what I find every business unique, and this at the same time, this sounds like an oxymoron. Every business is unique, but the same at the same time, right? Because the principles of business all remain the same: marketing, sales, operations. Usually the only thing that I've seen different is HR. You go to certain companies, HR is going to be a giant team, or it's going to be a trash can, one or the other. Submit all claims to the trash can. There's your HR. No, I've seen that. Actually, that happened at a video game company I worked for. That's where I get that from. But anyway, fundamentally, I think businesses all have, again, the principles of business don't change. The context changes, and the context is what makes everything so unique. And Archie, I apologize if I put you on the spot of saying that we're going to share this journey with you, because it's like, oh man, see, now it's like, if I were in your shoes, I start going, well, what what if this doesn't work out? But hey, lessons learned. But anyway, for me, it's how do we benefit each other, right? And I'm not saying in the sense of like we're just passing money along within the BJJ community. It's that we fundamentally have a common denominator amongst all of us, right? Again, because why? We are all on this jiu-jitsu journey as much as we are on this business journey, no matter what capacity we're at. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm really excited and hopeful that this is where we can grow things. This is how we're going to help people out. This is where we're leaving our mark. So
I agree. I'm gonna echo something here real quick around the build it and you will build it and they will come. I'll tell you from what I've seen, that is the biggest mistake that any business owner can do is invest a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of energy with no real plan on how we're going to monetize the business, it's a mistake. And I've seen and worked with business owners that have taken that approach. They took a lot of pride in their ability to deliver a great product, and they put all their energy in towards building a great product, which again, I mean, the fundamental of the business, if you're going to ask people for money, you have to have a great product. But ultimately, where the rubber meets the road is that product has to be monetized, right? And there has to be a very clear and strategic plan in how you do that. And the idea of just, hey, I'm going to build this chiropractic office in the middle of this building, wherever, in whatever city, ABC city. And just because I put a sign out front that hopefully it's going to turn into a business, I think it's a mistake, right? I mean, there may, you mentioned a little bit earlier, Ed, that there may be some luck that does contribute, and luck does have a factor there. But I wouldn't bank on it, right? If you're going to put time and energy into it and create a business out of it, you got to be very intentional about driving people into the business, whether it's a bakery, whether it's a chiropractor, whether it's a staffing and recruiting firm, or regardless of what it is, there has to be some very intentional plans to convert all of this marketing efforts and the product itself into an opportunity to be able to generate money, so you can reinvest that back into the business, right? So the idea of a business, there's kind of the multiple worlds, right? There's people have ambition to be able to open a business specifically for profit, which is the measurement of the business. But ultimately, right, the idea that, hey, I'm going to deliver this great product, in your case, chiropractic, and the benefits that come along with that, there's going to be people, the more and more people you serve, the more and more people could benefit from that product, right? And then as you continue to grow your business, you could employ people, which now, again, you're creating opportunities for them to be able to support their families. And exchange all that, right? You'll get a chance to build your network and be able to build vendors and support their businesses as well. And at the end of it all, you have an opportunity to reap all the financial benefits if it's all done correctly, right? So, as we take a look at it, I think it's, all of those pieces, and not to get too far on my, on my soapbox, but that idea of build it and they will come. I'm sure there's people that have done it, but success doesn't happen on accident, right? You got to be very intentional about it.
I'd love to have a guest that actually did that.
I would too. I'd love to see, who's done that, right? Because I mean, even in the case, right, you have to have an awesome product, right? You have to, but at the end of the day, there has to be some method of, okay, hey, well, even if it's a very passive method of, okay, well, if I was a great jiu-jitsu instructor, right, which I aspire to be one day, I could be the best jiu-jitsu instructor in the world, but if I'm just by myself hanging out in my garage with the best jiu-jitsu mats and the best AV system, hoping that someone shows up, it's not going to happen, right? I'm going to have to go out there and get some in order for that to turn into reality, right? And getting that first one and getting that second one and getting that third one, there has to be a machine that's built behind it in order for it to truly translate, right? Whether I'm a barber cutting hair, it's the same exact thing, or whether I'm a chiropractor, or whether we're building a restaurant. I mean, there has to be some method of going out there. And number one, where Ed's expertise is branding, marketing, lead generation. Then there has to be a process of being able to convert that into clients, right? Regardless of what your product or service is.
Yeah, absolutely. Love it.
Well, cool. Well, we're, what is it, 1 hour in. I got a couple kind of closing notes, but before we go over, Archie, anything I missed, anything that you want to share?
Oh, I'm just excited. I deeply appreciate being part of this. I'm looking forward to what's to come, man. I'm excited. I'm stoked about this.
Yeah, excited to have you also, and excited just about the context that you're going to bring. And yeah, I'm excited about the overall experience as a whole. It's going to be fun. Ed, what about you? Any thoughts, questions?
I think I probably spoke too much already as it is, but no, I'm very excited to see where this community and how this community grows. I'm excited to make new friends. I'm excited to make new business contacts. I'm excited to see this show grow And I'm excited to learn. I think I got two guys that we're going to be working. The two guys right here in front of me are going to be an awesome pair to work with as a team. And you guys will probably be hearing a little bit less of me because, again, I'm probably be switching over more to the producer side to get all the tech stuff going. But one way or another, once I start talking, man, it's hard for me to shut up. So that being said,
no, man,
that's it for me.
we enjoy it.
Yeah.
I'm glad you had a chance to be able to contribute, and it's not going to be the last time that we pull you into the conversation. I think your contribution to the conversation is very critical as well. So thank you.
I think what were you talking about? Like, it's going to be like the Joe Rogan podcast. Like, I'll be the Jamie. Was it
Jamie?
Yeah, like, nobody ever sees him, but there he is.
He's back there doing something.
Yeah.
So a couple things. And Archie, thank you guys so much. I want to make sure I'm extremely clear in regards to what our goal is. Our goal is to be able to build something special for the jiu-jitsu community and everybody that's in the jiu-jitsu community that has a business or has some type of incentive to be able to go out and get clients, right? Our goal is to be able to create an environment where we could refer business to one another, right? I think if there's an opportunity for us to support people inside the jiu-jitsu community, I think we would all agree that if we're going to give our business to somebody, it might as well be somebody that is in the jiu-jitsu community, provided, right, we are getting a great product, and provided that we are getting, value for what we're doing, right? And I trust that, people inside the jiu-jitsu community would take care of one another in a positive way, in the same way that we would, trust each other on the mats. So with that, I want to give a couple shout outs to everybody. We got to this point here. It's been a lot of ups and downs as we've been, trying to get this thing off the ground, but episode 1 is fully off the ground. We had several people that have helped get us to this point. We got Mike over at 10th Planet in Mission Viejo. Mike Hofer, he helped out with several of the visuals, some of the initial videos that were created, the logo that was created. Again, the goal is to be able to create this by the jiu-jitsu community, for the jiu-jitsu community. All of the legal paperwork and everything. Professor Nathan Broadnecks, right? He's a jiu-jitsu black belt, also an attorney and the owner of Victorum Law. He's actually going to be onto the show. I'm excited to get some time with him. And obviously you, Mallard Creative, very instrumental in helping us just kind of guide, the direction of where we're going and the overall brand. We got the team over at Undefeated Screen Printing. They're also a subsidiary of Combat Corner. They're helping out with some T-shirts that are getting created. Eric Walsh from Undefeated Screen Printing is a brown belt out of Milwaukee. Also, 2 other folks, my tattoo artist, Sam Scott, over at Art of Dedication, AOD. He is a purple belt, Sector Jiu-Jitsu purple belt. He helped out with some of the initial content that you guys will be seeing here soon. We did an interview with him during one of the tattoo sessions of him just sharing, how he got his tattoo journey, or his journey as a tattoo artist off the ground. And then also Alex DeHue, who is the owner of Gracie Baja Garden Grove. Also, him and his partners have a coffee shop there in Tustin, which is called Raised by Lions. They're actually building a kind of an extension of their coffee business as well. Look forward to having him on the show as well. But we had some initial content that we created that we'll be sharing to help get this thing off the ground. So again, look forward to continuing to get these episodes off and running. Look forward to getting a chance to be able to learn from one another. And as we go through this, we have a Instagram account. It's BizJitsu_podcast. We have the BizJitsu.com website. If you have any information or any or would like to have your business information listed, or would like to be a guest on the show, please visit us there. At the same time, shout out to my staffing and recruiting company, the sponsor, right? The kind of unofficial sponsor of the podcast, Union Staffing Group. We're a boutique staffing and recruiting firm. We work with small to medium-sized businesses and work with your HR team as an outsourced agency to help secure the best possible talent for your open positions. If you have questions, you could visit us at unionstaffinggroup.com. Other than that, we appreciate your time. Thank you so much. And we'll hear you on the next one on the BizJitsu podcast.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.